To make the most of RV TripWizard's functionality, be sure to properly set up your RV fuel information in your profile settings. When you first create your account, you'll be prompted to enter in various details about your RV and travel preferences, which will be saved as your default settings. RV TripWizard will then use this information in every new trip you create. If you need to check on or change your default settings, you can find them by clicking on your profile icon in the upper right and then selecting Default Settings. Note that the default settings will be moved to your profile in the future, but the various fields should remain largely the same. In this video, we will focus on the RV Info tab and the section under RV and Truck Fuel Information. In Fuel Type, your selection from the drop-down menu will be used to automatically select the fuel type when searching for fuel costs. Choose from Unleaded Regular, Unleaded Plus, Unleaded Premium, and Diesel. Fuel capacity is your vehicle's total fuel capacity. You can find this information in your Vehicle Owner's Manual. In this example, the total fuel capacity is 24 gallons. The Fuel Reserve feature lets you set the number of gallons you'd like to have left in your tank when the low fuel indicator alert appears on your trip map. In this case, we set the number of gallons to 4. Fuel economy is your estimated fuel efficiency calculated in miles per gallon. We recommend that you calculate a real-world towing fuel efficiency for your vehicle and enter that here. In this example, the fuel economy is set to 14 miles per gallon. Fuel warnings will be displayed with the low fuel indicator icon along your route as you reach the fuel reserve limit you previously entered. You can choose to show multiple warnings, just one warning at a time, or none. If multiple is selected, the warning displays from every point onward, assuming you fill up to full at each warning marker. If one is selected, the single warning marker will move along your route as you enter in your fuel fills. Note that if you need the flexibility to modify settings for one specific trip without altering your established defaults, say for a trip in a borrowed or rented RV, you can enter different fuel information via the Trip Settings feature. Open up the trip you wish to change settings for, then click on the wrench icon to open the Trip Tools menu and select Trip Settings. Then click on the RV Info tab and scroll down to the RV Fuel Information section. The low fuel indicator helps you understand when and where along the road you'll need to refuel while on your journey. RV TripWizard will take into account the information you entered from your RV and truck fuel information settings, and then calculate how many miles you can travel before you'll need to fill up your tank. This feature improves travel days by removing the uncertainty of searching for a fuel stop that meets your needs. You can plan in advance, scope out fuel stops on the map, and even zoom in to see a view of the entrance and pump islands. How does the low fuel indicator work? For this example, we will use the following numbers. Let's say our RV gets an average of 14 miles per gallon, in red, with a fuel tank capacity of 24 gallons, in blue. When we multiply these two numbers, we get 336 miles. This means that, on average, our RV is capable of traveling 336 total possible miles on a single tank of gas until it is empty. Of course, we'll need to fill the tank before then. We've chosen to get a low fuel warning when we are down to 4 gallons, as shown in the fuel reserve field. If we do the math, we see this. The low fuel indicator icon will show up on our map when we're left with about 56 miles worth of fuel before the tank runs empty. In this case, that's 56 miles before the total distance of 336 miles we calculated earlier, or 280 miles from our last fill-up. This is how the low fuel indicator gives you a heads up on when and where to begin searching for a gas station before your tank reaches empty. Let's use the low fuel indicator to help add fuel stops. We've already opened up the trip we want, we've got a few campgrounds added, and we are looking at our map view. We might decide to turn off the driving radius and toggle off campgrounds at this point to make our map a little less busy. Because we've chosen to see multiple fuel warnings, we can see that we're going to need at least these 3 fuel stops between our starting point and our final campground. Or, if we change the setting to show us only 1 fuel warning, the indicator icon will show up only the first time our fuel level goes down to the reserve amount. In this case, this icon should display when we are down to 4 gallons of fuel, assuming we left with a full tank. Then, once we enter in a fill-up, RV Trip Wizard will move the indicator icon to the next point we need to refuel. We can see that the first low fuel indicator icon is shortly after our first campground in Tulsa. The placement of the icon allows you to anticipate your refueling needs and plan ahead. We know that right here we will have about 4 gallons left before the tank is empty. We could plan to fill up just after leaving the first campground by going to a gas station. Let's look for one nearby. Zoom in on the area surrounding the low fuel indicator and then open up the research drawer. Click on the Points of Interest tab and then select Fuel to see all the fuel stop options in the map area. If you want to filter the results even further and only see certain fuel stations such as Love's or Pilot, click to deselect miscellaneous gas stations. Now we can see this Flying J is right along our route. Click on the pin icon for the fuel stop in the map and then click Add to Trip. We'll add it after the first campground stop. Now we can see that the Flying J fuel stop has been added to our itinerary. This next step is important. We need to let RV Trip Wizard know that we plan to fill up our tank here. To do this, click on or hover over the Flying J in the itinerary and select Edit, the pencil icon, from the pop-up that appears on the right. The Edit Trip window will appear. We can see several calculations RV Trip Wizard makes about potential fuel usage here, based on miles between stops and your fuel settings. To let RV Trip Wizard know that you plan to refuel here, go to the Fuel Added section. Click the top-off checkbox to tell RV Trip Wizard that you'll be leaving this stop with a full tank. You also have the option to manually enter in a number for gallons of fuel you will add here, though generally we recommend using the top-off checkbox option. Click Save. Back in the map view, we can see that the fuel indicator has now moved just beyond the next trip stop around Kansas City. You can repeat this process to continue planning out your fuel stops wherever the low fuel indicator shows that you'll be running low on fuel along your journey. You can add more new fuel stops to your trip, or you can also indicate a fuel fill at an existing stop. For example, if we look closer at this next low fuel indicator icon, we see that it appears just after our Kansas City campground, where we know we plan to stay for multiple days and could also plan to fill up our tank at some point during that time. Click on or hover over the stop in the itinerary and click the pencil icon to bring up the Edit Trip window. We can see that we will be leaving our previous stop, the Pilot gas station, with a full tank of 24 gallons. And RV Trip Wizard calculates that we will need to use around 19.17 gallons to get to this campground stop, which should leave us with around 4.83 gallons of fuel on arrival. Once again, click the top-off checkbox to let RV Trip Wizard know that you plan to fill up your tank at this stop. Click Save. Now that we are leaving our Kansas City stop with a full tank, we can see back on the map that our third fuel stop will need to be somewhere between our last 2 campgrounds. Continue adding new fuel stops or topping off fuel at existing stops as shown previously. Once we let RV Trip Wizard know that we plan to top off fuel at our Omaha campground, we can see that the last low fuel indicator icon has been removed from the map. When it comes time for your trip and you're traveling along your itinerary, you may happen to fill up while at a campground or some other unplanned fuel location along the way. We recommend topping off at your planned fuel stop anyway, to keep subsequent fuel stops in your itinerary on track. RV Trip Wizard will give you a rough estimate of fuel costs as you add stops to your trip. It will take the average cost per gallon from your settings and multiply this by the amount of gallons in the fuel used field at each stop in your itinerary. Here's a campground from our trip where we've already chosen to top off, refilling the 14.37 gallons of fuel used since the last stop, where we also refueled. At the default fuel cost of $3.50, this comes out to around $50, which is shown in the fuel costs field here. If you want to change the fuel cost per gallon for this specific fuel stop to be different from your default value, you can change that field here as well, and the estimated fuel cost will be recalculated for you. Note that this cost calculation is done at every stop in your itinerary, regardless of designating it as a fuel top-off, and that the costs are based only on fuel used and not on fuel added. In this example, we've left the Dallas area and driven all the way to Tulsa. Note that there is a calculated fuel cost listed here, even though you may not be planning to fill up and purchase fuel at this particular stop. This is because RV Trip Wizard is still estimating how much fuel would cost in order to travel the miles for this leg of the journey. Meanwhile, when we drive just a few miles down the road to the gas station and do top off our tank, the fuel cost here is only calculated based on the small amount of fuel used since the last stop. Because RV Trip Wizard is a planning tool, these features are here to help you simply estimate expenses and give you a rough idea of costs as you design your itinerary. RV Trip Wizard makes it easy to get an idea of current fuel prices for the areas you'll be traveling. To check nearby gas prices around a campground, click on any campground icon in the area you want to check. A small pop-up showing the campground information will appear. Click on Park Details. On the bottom left of the larger Park Details screen, click Nearby Gas Prices. You will be redirected to a third-party website in a different browser tab. This website will show you fuel prices close to the campground that you clicked on. Notice that the fuel type dropdown should have automatically selected your chosen fuel type from your RV Trip Wizard default or trip settings. Alternatively, you can also right-click on any point on the map and select Check Fuel Prices. It will redirect you to the same website. Remember that the fuel prices shown are accurate at the time of checking the website and will likely be different if your actual trip takes place weeks or months later.